Bum-ba-da-dum. Howdy, welcome to BanjoBenClark.com. I am Banjo Ben, your host here on the site that teaches you guitar and mandolin. This week is Banjo week, and instead of our regular old G lick to kick the video off, I threw the thumb over the top. And that's actually what today's lesson is all about. It's about fretting this fifth string. I played banjo for a couple years before I really got into that. Now I use it all the time. Maybe you've seen banjo players do that. Either throw their thumb over the top or maybe use another finger. That's what today's lesson is all about. So I want to talk about the theory of it and the technique, how to make it easier for you to do that. What are some things that you might do that can make it harder to play? And then I want to get into real world application for that. So we'll talk about building licks, some melodic and chromatic licks using that fifth string. But then also talk about backup, because that's where we're going to use it maybe most of the time is when we're playing our chord shapes up the neck and we want to get a seventh tone in there. So we'll talk about that too. If you're watching somewhere besides the website, come on over to BanjoBenClark.com, join as a Gold Peak member, get access to this full lesson, including the tabs and hundreds of other lessons that I have. All right, boys and girls, let's talk about technique when we're going to play that fifth string. We're either going to play it with our thumb over the top, or we could use almost any of our other fingers. I guess technically you could use all of them, but most commonly we would use maybe our pinky or our ring finger up on that fifth string, and we'll talk about instances of that. Now, I want to cover some technique because I remember when I first started trying to play the fifth string and seeing other players throw their thumb over the top, it was very difficult, and that's simply because my hand wasn't in the right position for it mainly. So we've got to have good technique from the start to be able to use that thumb over the top. I will also touch quickly on your instrument itself. If you have a really, really fat banjo neck, meaning fat from the back of the neck to the fretboard, then it's going to make it more difficult because you're going to have more to reach around, right? So I prefer a thinner neck, more of a slimline neck, and one of the reasons is to be able to get that thumb over. Also, regarding your fifth string spikes, or maybe you have a fifth string rail capo, those are things that could kind of get in your way too. If your spikes are installed correctly, they're not going to cause an issue. That's one of the ways you know spikes are installed correctly, is if you can play your fifth string and not have any issues there. So whenever even though I have my spikes in 7, 8, 9, 10, I can throw my thumb over and get nice clear tone out of all those strings. Okay, so most of the time when I play the banjo, I'm letting the banjo rest on the fleshy part of my first joint there. There's actually a little callus that I have on my first finger that is there because of the instrument's rest there. I don't palm the banjo, I don't palm any instrument. I have this angle turned to where my fingers are kind of pointing toward my right shoulder. And so the thumb is not holding the banjo tightly. It's just kind of resting on top. So if I go up the neck and were to play something like this, my thumb is just simply there. And so it's not much of a stretch, excuse the pun, to just be able to throw my thumb over the top. I might have to reach just a little bit, but I'm going to bend that thumb at the first joint, and I'm going to put it right over the top. And, just be careful that you don't do too much. Like, you may be trying a lot harder than what your banjo requires to get a good tone out of there. So you just want to start playing that fifth string and listen for how much pressure and how much distance it requires to get good tone. Now, there are other times we play the banjo where it's going to be a bit different with our hand position. For instance, if we're barring something, I might play a lick that looks like this. Okay, so I'm barring the first two strings with my index finger. So that means that out of the bar position, whenever I bar, my thumb is usually on the back of the banjo neck, squeezing to give me pressure for that bar. But if I'm going to be using my thumb over the top, what in the world do I do? Well, that's when I use this part of my hand to take the place of my thumb on the back of the neck to squeeze there so I can have the pressure of the bar, and then my thumb can still come over the top. Okay, so those might be just rare instances or more advanced instances when you'd need to throw your thumb over the top. Now, regarding playing with our other fingers, not a lot changes there as well. So if I was going to use my pinky to play that fifth string, nothing really changes with the rest of my hand position. I know that if I have my hand cocked too much this way, it's going to be very difficult to get that pinky all the way up there. I know that if I have too much of the banjo in my hand, that I'm going to mute these strings as I try to play with my pinky up there. So I'm going to, again, let it rest on that first digit of my index finger. And be able to use both my pinky or my ring finger or even my middle finger if I want to do so. So you'll get used to being able to use those fingers, but I just want to let you know it's going to feel weird for a little while. And that's okay. And it might determine what kind of banjo you buy in the future, as if it's easier or more difficult to reach over the top and grab those fifth strings. You know, people might wonder, well, how often am I really going to do that? Well, you're going to do it a lot as you progress in your banjo playing. I just want to go ahead and tell you that. You're going to do that a lot. Okay, so now that we have the technique down, let's continue on and look at a bit of the theory behind using the fifth string.